Now we're ready to add pattern paper to the entrance and the tower. And I'm using a coordinating paper. This is the reverse side of it that I have right here. But there'll be need for 2 sheets, and paper will get to be at a premium. So I just want to show you how I'm going to lay this out. Now for the front of the tower and the front of the entrance that you can see right here, each of those are going to need to have a 1/2 inch score on the bottom and a 1/2 inch score on either of their sides. So I'm allowing an inch in between here and then another 1/2 inch here. So that's where these two are going. This is one of the side walls for the entrance, and it will be cut just a 1/2 inch longer, and then right on the edge for the other shapes. This is the back tower wall, the one with no window up here at the top, and we only need to cover it with paper up to about what I would say are the shoulders here. So I'm going to use this section down here for it. Now for the 2 tower side walls, those again will be cut exactly to their size on the main part of the wall. Everything has a 1/2 inch tab at the bottom. This is the other side wall for the entrance, and so we have a little paper, it looks like, left over here, but we do need that, so for some other pieces that we'll get to in a minute. Now when we cut these pieces for the tower, we also want to allow some extra tabs on the shoulder parts and next to the upper part. So even on these 2 pieces here, we will allow for that to come. They can be cut even with the top here. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and prepped with some score tape, and what I've done for this is the inside that we're looking at on all of these right now, where I've just gone around the window openings. And then on the exteriors I'll just flip all of these over. So on the exteriors for the entrance front and the tower front, I've gone around the entire perimeter as well as the openings. And then you can see on all the other walls, I've added a piece. This is 5/8 inch tape. You could use half or a couple strips of quarter placed next to each other. You just want to have a strip of tape that comes down the center, because when we join these units to the main part of the building, that's where the joins will be, so that will make sure that everything comes along structurally sound. And then there's no tape on the perimeters of the entrance side walls or the tower side walls, but I have put some up here on the shoulders and at the very top on the inside. I'm sorry, this is the outside. So that's the prep for getting started, and now I'm going to cut each shape, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm going to start with this piece of paper that we'll use for the 2 fronts, the entrance front, the tower front, and one of the entrance sides. And I'm going to start with the tower front. Now, the tower measures 3 inches across, and we want to have 1/2 inch tabs on either side, plus we want to allow a 1/16 of an inch on either side, so to account for the thickness of the walls we'll be wrapping onto. And so the math for that is 3 plus 2 at 1/2 plus 2 at 1/16, or 4 1/8 inches. So I'm just going to mark a line that is 4 1/8 inch from the side here. And then I also going to have a tab of 1/2 inch on the bottom. So I'm just going to mark a line on the bottom that is 1/2 inch up. Now I've already placed some temporary adhesive on the front of my tower, and the way I'm going to line this up is I'm going to put my ruler so that it is 9/16 of an inch from the edge. So I'm looking at the edge of the paper through my ruler, and I'm finding the line that is the 1/2 inch mark on this one is very dark, so I can easily find that. And then I'm lining up the edge of the paper between that 1/2 inch line and the 5/8 inch line. Now, if you're more comfortable drawing this line, but I find this helps me keep it really straight here. And I'm just checking that I've got that in the right place. And now I'm pressing this down with the temporary adhesive. Now, sometimes the temporary adhesive is more temporary than you want it to be, and it will come off. So I'm also keeping pressure on this while I do the next step, which is to draw around and to make some tick marks at the top where the top of the straight wall meets this, I'm calling this the shoulder part here. Then draw up here to the top line, over here on the side, and down here, and make another tick mark where that side comes in. Now, the reason for doing that is, like I said, sometimes the temporary adhesive doesn't hold very well. And what we want to do is mark for tabs on this top part and the shoulder part that are 3/8 of an inch out past the edge of the chipboard. So you can either remove the, I'm going to just remove my chipboard because I I have this score tape on here, it's not holding very well to begin with. So anyway, I'm just going to come out up here and mark a line that's 3/8 of an inch away from the straight part and the shoulder part. And I'll do that on the other side as well. So now we have the outline for our piece, and we can cut on that furthest outline. So I should say one other thing first. Before we cut on that, let's draw a straight line that is 6 1/2 from the bottom, 6 1/2 from the bottom. So that when you cut down on this shoulder here, you'll stop at the 3/8 will be inside of this shoulder cut here. And so make sure you don't continue down. It's not a big deal. There's plenty of room for it. But you might as well just, I like to be accurate, but it's not a big concern. So I'm going to cut this shape out, and then I'll be back. So now that I have my paper cut, I'm going to score a 1/2 inch in on each side. And then a 1/2 inch up from the bottom. And now we can fold on those scores. And cut out our corners like we've done before. Now notice I didn't score anything up here at the top. I'm not going to score anything there. So when we go to put this on, we will do just like we've done before, and that is there's that little bit of play side by side here that we've allowed for. And so we'll just make sure that this is lined flush with our bottom score, but centered in between our two side scores. And then go ahead and finish your windows just like we've done before. As you wrap the little curved window up here at the top, you may need to give the side tabs a little haircut, because I think they'll probably extend a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch where you just stick them down. So just give them a trim so that they don't extend past the edges of the walls up here. Now I think you can see that I've trimmed the side tabs off of the brown cardstock on the tower window. I decided that we didn't need that. We've got enough real estate here. Originally I think I was thinking that these windows would be a little bit wider, and that was my concern. So anyway, you can just trim these side tabs off, and make sure that your window is no more than 1.25 inches so that it will fit inside of here and not go past the edges. I've also put some score tape on these tabs and just cut some little notches where the angle of the roof changes, and then here on the sides I've just cut these straight across. So I'll put this window in here at the top, and then our tower front will be done. So for our entrance front, it again measures 3 inches wide, so we need to allow 4 1/8 of a width for our paper, just like with the tower front. And again, we'll bring it up 1/2 inch from the bottom. So I'll make those 2 layout lines. So I have my 2 layout lines made, and just like with the tower, I'm going to put some temporary adhesive on the building piece, and then I'm going to line up my ruler at 9/16 on this cut edge, and line it up with my 1/2 inch score line on the bottom. And I'm giving some good pressure because with that score tape, sometimes the temporary adhesive doesn't want to hold all that well. So now I'm going to draw a pencil line up here by the roof peak. Now, unlike the tower, we don't have to allow for tabs here, but I just want to cut this out just a skosh bigger than the peak, you know, 1/8 to 1/16. Just so I'm going to trim it even with the roof, but I want to do that once it's on, so that I make sure I get it exactly where I want it to be. So now I've drawn those 2 lines there. I'm looking for the top of this corner here, and I'm going to come straight out across from there. You can measure if you want. it would be the distance between this peak and the bottom plus a half an inch from the bottom of your paper. But I think this will work pretty well. And so now I'm going to cut this piece out and I'll be back. Now I have my piece cut out and I need to do some scoring. I'm going to make 1/2 inch tabs on the left and the right. And the bottom. I'll give those a crease. And then cut out our corners. And just cut these at a slight angle. And now again, we have our 1/8 of inch play here, so that when we go to put this down, we'll get it centered between the two side creases and butted right up against that top crease. And then once I do that, I will make my 2 openings and insert the window on the top, and then I'll be back to talk about the door. To make the door, I started out with a piece of brown cardstock that is 2 3/4 inches tall by 1.5 inches wide, 2 3/4 by 1 1/2. I trimmed it on 3 sides with my 3/8 inch white cardstock, and then I did take my pumice stone marker just slightly in on the edges there. Now the door, I'm going to have a panel door. You could finish your door however you'd like. The door opening itself is 2 1/4 inches. And so, and remember, part of that is going to be our trim here at the top. So the door size, so there's a 1/4 of an inch extra on all 4 sides. So I've just cut a couple of little pieces. This one I think is 5/8 by 5/8, and I'm just going to kind of decide where I want them so that it looks like a panel door. And you could sure put this into the door space just so that you know, to get an idea of where you want your panels. I think I'll like that. And then I've just got a little brad here to act as a doorknob, which I'll attach, and then I'll insert the door just like I've inserted all the other windows. And then I think you can see I've trimmed off along the edges up here at the top and add my score tape to the edges. I just have to put in the window ledge. Eventually we'll have some steps that come in here to the front, so nothing happens underneath the door for now. So now we want to cut a piece of pattern paper for the entrance side wall, and it is 6 1/4 inches tall, so we want to add a 1/2 inch tab at the bottom, so that'll be 6 3/4 inches tall by 3 inches wide. And I'm just going to cut that piece. I'm not going to attach it for now. And then once I have this piece cut, I will score it on the bottom a 1/2 inch. And then we can go ahead and prep the edges with score tape, put a strip above the crease here, and then another strip on the tab. Moving on to our second sheet of paper, I'm going to cut two pieces for the tower sides that are 3 inches wide by 10.5 tall. 3 inches wide by 10.5 tall, two of those. And then for our other side entrance wall, again, that piece was 3 inches wide by 6 3/4, 3 by 6 3/4. So I'll get that cutting done and then I'll be back. Now for all three pieces, we want to score the bottom at 1/2 inch. Now for our piece that is for the entrance side wall, we'll follow the same steps that we did for the other one. And then for our tower side walls, I'll just work on one here. So I'm going to ink my edges first. I'm mostly concerned about these ones down at the bottom, so like come up 6 inches or so above the fold. And then I'm working on the back side here. The only tape that I want to fasten down is the tape around the windows. In fact, what I'm going to do is just, I don't want to attach these shoulders yet, so I'm just trimming off a little bit of the backing so that we can do the window without attaching the remainder of the score tape. So you can see what I've done here, I think. So now I'm going to, again, this is my back side. I'm going to get this centered in here. And so we're just basically attaching it at the window area. So I want to add my 3/8 inch tabs here at the top. So I'm just going to measure 3/8 of an inch again. And then I'll cut those pieces off. Now, one thing I forgot to do was to put score tape on the edges here, just on these vertical edges and across the bottom, so I'll do that now. So I have score tape on my edges, and I've also gone underneath here and put it on as well. And I'll cut out just this one notch up here on either side. And then I'll complete my window, and the rest of this we won't attach until we put the tower together. And now for the back piece of the tower, remember, we just have to cover up on the top section. So what I've done is I've drawn a line 1 inch in from the left side on this paper, and I've drawn a line 1/4 of an inch down from the points on the shoulder here. And what I'm going to do is, when I remove my score tape backing, and of course I've got the back side of the paper here, I'm going to line up that 1 inch line with the left side of my tall piece here, and the bottom edge with that line I just drew right here. So I have this adhered down, and now I want to draw some lines that are 3/8 of an inch from the top part and the shoulders, just like we did for the front. So I've got my 3/8 inch lines drawn here, and then we'll just come across even with the top up here, and I'll cut that out. And then to finish this off, I've just added some score tape and cut some little notches here. I haven't scored or folded any of these edges here yet. So that's the back. And then on the same side that we added the pattern paper to, we want to add one of our little 1/4 inch ledger strips to the bottom. And I cut this one about 2.5 inches because we want to hold it back about 1/4 of an inch from each side. And again, this is held up 1/16 of an inch from the bottom. Just burnish that on. The only thing we need to do to the entrance back piece is to add a little ledger strip. I've again cut this about 2.5 inches because the piece is 3 inches wide and I want to hold back about 1/4 of an inch from each end. And then I keep it up about a 1/16 of an inch from the bottom. Now I'm going to mark also on here just so that I remember. This is on the outside, so I'm just writing outside back. My Sharpie is not too much left in it, but I can see that, and so that's the only thing we need to do to the entrance wall back.